today is Hannah Darby, and Hannah, thank you for being here too. And I appreciate all you are watching also. And I'm going to read Hannah's bio here so you can learn a little bit more about her. She's an award-winning holistic healer, a Reiki master, certified coach, and a grief educator. She is founder of the H.E.A.L method that removes the blocks to success, love, money, and happiness that's caused by grief. Hannah is a global best-selling author, having co-authored multiple books and has been featured in multiple different international magazines and as well as local news outlets. And all her social media and her website links are below for you all to check out. And Hannah, again, thank you for joining me. And I would love to hear your story, how you came to do the work you do, and then we can go from there on just having a fun discussion about, well, grief doesn't sound fun to talk about, but healing from grief of all kinds is very good to talk about.
Yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you for having me here today, and to all your listeners. It's really lovely to be here. So my kind of how I started out doing my work is literally just my kind of stems all from my own personal healing journey, really, and trying to find my own place in the world and being guided by spirit and just listening to those little nudges that we're given along the way and following them head first. So it all kind of started when I was just 13 and my dad died of a heart attack. So that kind of was really sudden and threw my whole world upside down. At that time in the UK, we didn't really have any guidance or support. There was no kind of structured help from within the school or as part of the GP practices or anything. So it's really just kind of like learning on my own 2 feet. And it really made me kind of question my faith and the world, and everything just kind of threw me into a disarray. So in order to try and understand myself better and work out why I was feeling the way I did and why I couldn't kind of shift these, I called it kind of like this doom cloud that just followed me around. I then went on to study psychology at university just to kind of understand myself better, really. And I knew I'd always had this calling deep within me that I was here to do something bigger than just myself and to guide other people. I always found that people generally kind of open up to me and tell me their life story and their woes and troubles, and just kind of just find it really easy to talk to me. I thought, well, this is a gift. I need to use this gift and utilize it and try and help guide as many other people who were lost in grief as I was back then to try and find their own feet. And that kind of spiraled on. Then later, I then had a car accident in 2016 and I broke my back. And that then kind of, that threw the rest of kind of my job I was doing at the time and everything else into disarray. And there was a lot of grief associated with that I really wasn't anticipating, from kind of losing parts of myself that made me almost feel like that little girl again. And that's when I found, I really kind of dove into more of my spiritual side and found Reiki. And that really helped me kind of work out why I was feeling the way I did, and really kind of start to shift these energies that I could just feel that were stuck in me, all these negative emotions I'd been holding on to for too long. And that really did help, but I still felt like there was something missing. I'd done the mindset work, I'd done the energy healing work, but there was still just kind of this bit of a hole that I just couldn't fill. And, it's just that something wasn't connecting. And then that's when I found kind of working with the heart. And the heart is always, I like to think, and my mentor, Natasha, she calls it the portal to the soul. So it really ties in the mindset work and the energy work and kind of brings everything together. And that's why I studied heart healing. And I love it because it's got one foot in science and one foot in spirituality, which is very much how I've kind of lived my whole life. And it marries those two together in a way that I've not seen anything else do, because usually kind of you say science and spirituality, it's a bit like oil and water, but it doesn't, they don't have to be like that. And it's just It's a kind of a revolutionary approach that's used within the meditative state that takes you on a journey into your heart, kind of merging those ancient spiritual practices from tapping into the chakras and journeying along with kind of the cutting edge science and the psychology behind it, and mixing those two together for just activating kind of emotional, relational, and spiritual intelligence that's hidden within us.
Yeah. Well, very nice. Thank you for sharing. Um, yeah, I've heard, that we're designed or built, for stories that we all tap into each other's stories and really connect that way. And I really love stories to hear where people come from and your thoughts behind all that. So thank you. So you said it was your goddaughter that had a heart attack?
No, my father. It was my
Oh,
father
your
that had a
father.
heart
I'm sorry.
attack.
Yeah, I totally didn't catch the word your father. That's hard. Yeah. How old were you then?
So I was only 13. So, that's
Oh,
a tough
oh,
age.
oh,
You're just kind of starting to find out who you are. And I was just starting to find out who he was
yeah.
as Don, not just as my father, and that was really kind of quite exciting times, learning more about his life and the way that he was, and, who he was as a person. And yeah, that really kind of just made me question everything,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very difficult. Very difficult. Yeah. Um, I know. I can't imagine losing a father at 13. I was how long ago? My dad died like 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago. So, I mean, I was maybe 50, and that was so hard. But let alone being 13. Wow. So, but it sounds very much like you've come to know the universe was working in your favor, right? Even then. And so what was like the two questions. What was the hardest in accepting that, and working through the grief of that and accepting that it was okay? And what was the biggest thing you feel that was working in your favor at that time?
So I'll start with the positive. I think what was working in my favor was that it really, I think we've got so much more emotional kind of resilience at a young age. We're able to like bounce back, and we're not so kind of stuck in our ways and our belief systems. It's much easier for us to kind of navigate through. And I think going through grief at such a young age, it did make me kind of mature faster. So that was kind of a plus and a minus, because we just lost part of my youth, but it gave me a viewpoint on the world that I don't think many other people kind of get to see until they're much older. It's almost like kind of having the blinkers lifted off, a real kind of empathy and a lust for life, because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
We're only kind of things that we know is that we're born, and then at some point, we're going to die, and there's all this space in between, but we've got no idea how long that space in between is going to be.
Right.
So life is just all about experiences, and it gave me that kind of that lust to just really truly experience life, and just kind of dig my heels in and get into everything and learn as much as I could about everything that there is, that I could possibly kind of get my hands on in that short amount of time. So I think that was kind of the positive, and I'd say the negative is just having to grow up really quickly. I think it does kind of rob you of that kind of youthful innocence in a way, and it really kind of dove me into a much more kind of pessimistic viewpoint that took a very number of years to kind of then shift out of that.
Well, for sure. And the grief does take years to heal, right? I don't think even if someone is real balanced or in harmony within themselves, and even when death might be expected, say if it's an elderly grandparent or an elderly parent, I think the grief takes time, a lot of time.
Yeah, it does. And I think, grief never leaves you. You don't really kind of like get over it at all. And I think that's a really kind of harmful saying that we say to people in a way. You know, it's more that we learn to integrate it and learn to live with it, and really kind of see the joy and the beauty buried beneath it. You know, because in order for us to grieve, we must have loved or cared for something in the first place. And I think the kind of depth of that is a reflection of how much passion and, you know, how much we loved and cared for whatever it was that we lost, whether that be a person or a job or, you know, a home or a part of yourself. You know, I think it's finding the meaning behind the grief is really important.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, I guess if you could lead us into how your how then the Reiki and the heart healing that you study, how those work well with healing grief then.
I think we tend to put up kind of walls within ourselves when we experience grief because it's such a painful experience, and it is so many different emotions all rolled into one. It's a bit like kind of being thrown into the ocean, and you never know quite when that wave is going to hit you. So there's a lot of kind of unknown anticipation. And I think being able to really sit in our energy and be able to be present in our bodies allows us to be able to notice when those waves are starting to kind of build up, so that we can prepare ourselves and then we're not completely thrown overboard again when it happens. And I think, you know, by using like an energy healing like Reiki, it really does allow us to just kind of drop into our body and just truly be present in here and now, and really notice exactly how we're feeling. Where does it feel a bit sticky? Where does it feel a bit heavy? And then explore those areas and dive into them and ask me, why is that feeling heavy? Why am I feeling kind of stuck there? What is it trying to teach me? Because I always think there's some kind of wisdom in the wound or some kind of lesson to be learned. And sometimes it's kind of a reflection on other things that are going on in our lives as well, and then they kind of like bring back those same emotions. So it's like, why did this situation that I'm in at the moment has made me feel like that again, you know? And it's just kind of asking those deep questions that you can't really get the answers to until you're quiet, you know. And it's about that kind of quiet, in those moments of quiet reflection. And I find that Reiki is really good for quietening the mind and just allowing yourself to really kind of connect with spirit and the divine or whatever kind of source you believe in, and really kind of dive deep into those meaningful questions.
Yeah, yeah, very nice. I know we grieve for so much too, more than just a loved one dying, right? There's so many things we grieve. In fact, it was just this morning or in the wee hours, and I was awake, and it was like this thought from 13, 14 years ago, or whenever it was, came back, and it was I was about a situation that was very difficult for me, and um, a job that I had lost. And I was, part of me at the time, I tuned in, like I said, to your body and to see what you're feeling. And part of me was allowing that grief to flow from back then. But the other part that I hadn't noticed before was, it was like I was grieving for me grieving, or, for the pain I felt back then. Looking back and feeling sadness, I guess, for the difficulty or the pain that I went through, and how I was handling it. So, uh, not near so good as I hopefully would handle something like that now, because of my healing journey and how I've grown, and compared to uh, all the old stories I had going then, and they couldn't go anywhere. It just built the old stories harder, or I just buried them as much as I could so that I could function and stuff. And so it's just surprising to me um, how that grief from whatever situation can slip back in when you're grounded, when your mind is open, and at the right time when it's ready to heal, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're ever shown anything until we're kind of like ready. It's almost like, I think, you know, our mind and spirit protects us, and then it'll open that box when we've got to a point in our healing journey when we're ready to kind of confront it again. But it's like there's no timeline to grief, and it's kind of like in the same way that like there's time is kind of a construct that we've made ourselves, you know, and it's like
Yes,
with Reiki we can send healing back to that time. So we're kind of like we're living in the now, but we're also living in the past and in the future all at the same time. So it's
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I find that I do biofield tuning, and I find that um, all the time in my work how interconnected all the generations of life are, and you can't separate them.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
and
and I do a lot of kind of ancestral and past life work as well. And I think the, you know, there's grief that we're carrying in our DNA that isn't even ours. You know, it's remembered from our ancestors. And whenever we go through something painful, it's almost like it resurrects this memory of um, the grief that we're carrying from our past as well. You know.
I think so very much, yeah. And I know in clearing some of my own ancestors, one time it was like all this. I knew I had felt those people before, and I'd said, I know I'd cleared um, things for you before, but why weren't you able to, move to the next realm then? Why are you back here again this time? And it was like, well, it was so intense and so terrible that rocked not just them, but the whole universe, whatever it was that was mankind was experiencing back then. And um, it was way too much anger. They couldn't. And so it
Yeah, and it's almost
takes
like
time for them.
yeah, and it's passed down to us, and I think, you know, it's an honor in a way to be able to have got to a stage in our healing journeys where we're able to heal this, not just for ourselves, but for our ancestors and for our past lives as well, you know.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, just yesterday, I was giving a biofield session to a client, and it was like at the end of the session I mean, I can feel ancestors are here during the session and getting ready to clear and to transition into the next round. But so we take a few moments at the end of the session for the client to hold that intention to open their heart, open their their energy, and uh, help the ancestor give the energy that's needed, the voltage that's needed to for the ancestor to transition the love, right, and caring. And it was like this was the first time I had really picked up this emotion from the ancestors, and it was like um, a lady here in the States that does a lot of spiritual work, and she's a chiropractor as well. Dr. Sue Morter. She made up the word, I guess, wonderment, the feeling of awe and wonder. And that's exactly the feeling that I felt from the ancestors. They were in awe or of wonder of us who at this time are doing that deep clearing for the generations and for the individual, like for each of us as individuals who are helping my own ancestors, because this was the ancestors of my client, and they were just so in awe of her steadfastness and uh, love for herself and for them, that she would continue enough so that they all could eventually transition into the heaven or the oneness or the next realm, whatever you want to call it. And it was just such a beautiful thing to realize how much it's acknowledged and appreciated by the ancestors too.
Yeah, I mean that's just a beautiful story, and it's wonderful thing to be a part of, you know. And it's kind of like it's like healing on the collective, isn't it? Because I think to a
Yes.
certain extent we're all interconnected, and we all kind of go back and got common ancestors, or you know, of our um, souls have met in past lives and things before. So being able to kind of not heal just for ourselves, but just heal like on a collective. And I do feel that there's kind of a much more of an awakening within the world right now, and so many more people that are kind of opening their eyes to the spiritual realms, and doing that healing that is, because healing isn't pretty. It's not, it's not nice. It's raw and it's unedited, and it's painful, and you never know quite where it's going to take you. But when you get kind of through that, the rewards on the other side are just beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I guess just overall in the grieving process or in the healing process, it's one of the things that I find most difficult is that it keeps going. It's like it's more and more and more and more, and it's like there's no end to all my old stories, or there's no end to what comes up to clear. And just when I think I've reached a place where um, it's more even keeled, I guess, and so I'm able to handle things more. Then this big, huge shift comes in another session, and it's like all this junk comes up, and it's like, how why was I carrying all that, or
Yeah.
where does that all hide?
I kind of think of it, it's like an onion, and like there's always another layer, isn't there? You just kind of peel it back
Yes.
and peel it back. But then in a way, it's almost like I love the kind of the surprise in it, because you never know quite what you're going to get next. It's like what is there buried deep within my soul or the collective that I'm gonna have the honor to witness next.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. um that's a beautiful way to say it, to keep that in mind as we do our clearing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
beautiful.
kind of like why I've just studied in quantum heart healing, which is really exciting, because that's within the session we will go to a wound and not only clear the ancestral root of it, but also your past life and your current life. So it's kind of marrying all of those three together within one healing session, which is just is really beautiful. And kind of the power of that healing is really intense, because you're not just healing that core issue on one level, you're healing it on kind of all three levels, and how that kind of might be presenting as like a repeating pattern within your soul contracts and things like that is really exciting.
Interesting. I don't know. I didn't ask you about this before or anything, but would you be willing to do like a mini experience for us to experience something like that, or no?
I could do another time. I haven't got everything set up at the moment, but I
Okay.
think, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, that would be awesome. We'll look forward to that. So I saw on your website that you do something called, I'm reading my paper here, um, Kintsugi, a Kintsugi program.
Yeah, so
And,
this is
and
like,
what's that?
it's kind of like kintsugi for the soul. So is the kintsugi is the Japanese art of repairing broken items, usually pottery with gold. And it's
Oh,
like when we go through grief or something, some kind of really intense loss, it's almost like we feel like our soul has been fractured. But it's rebuilding yourself up with gold and realizing that there is that kind of wisdom in the wound, and that these differences make you a stronger, more empathic human, and give you a viewpoint on the world that other people don't necessarily have. And it's about finding the joy and finding the happiness kind of buried within all of that. And I do that through my H.E.A.L method.
okay.
So we together we will kind of heal the relational wounds behind that loss. And then E is allowing you to express pain and anger, because I think anger is a really misjudged emotion. Feelings are just feelings. They're neither good nor bad, but there's so much kind of negative weight placed on anger. But it's
Yeah.
if you're trying to hold on to that energy, it's going to do you no good at all. It needs to be expressed, and it's allowing my clients to know that it's safe to express that, and that's a valid feeling for them. And then A is being able to accept your new reality, because grief throws us
Hmm.
into a world that we were never expecting to be in, and it's about kind of being able to accept that that's the card that we've been handed, unfortunately, and being able to kind of make the most with what we've got. And then the L, it stands for learning to live and love again, because I think
Mm,
there's you can be grieving and you can be happy at the same time. And just because you're experiencing happiness and joy and living your life to the full doesn't mean that you haven't forgotten whatever it was that you lost, or you don't care about it. In a way, it just means kind of you're honoring it more, because, you know, I know that, say, for example, my dad, when he passed, he would have wanted me to have lived my life to the fullest, because he's not been able to live his anymore. So, you know, I almost want to kind of live not just for me, but for him as well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. Um,
I think it's, yeah, it's about kind of giving them power back, you know, and just really allowing yourself to feel those feelings, because grief kind of throws up so many different feelings, you know. And numb, for example, is a feeling. It's just the absence of feeling anything, and knowing that feelings aren't good or bad, they're just feelings. And the problems occur when we try to hold on to those feelings. You know, we need to let them flow through us and let the energy just kind of carry on moving, in order to heal, and just not be disappointed or upset by whatever feelings that we do feel and get thrown up, and just really allow ourselves to be in that moment. Because I think there's kind of almost a lot of expectation with grief, that, you know, you expect it to be in a certain way, or you expect that you must kind of go through certain stages, or you're expected to be kind of sad for a period of time, and then people just expect you to get better. But it doesn't kind of work on a linear scale like that. It's very much kind of just comes and goes, and it's about learning just to kind of ride those feelings as they come.
yes. Yeah. You know, quite a long time ago, I don't know if it's been 50 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever, but it was kind of a big breakthrough for people in coming to know about the 5 stages of grief. And do you find that those 5 stages are still really relevant, or or are there, you know, other more helpful breakdown now
I
into that?
think I think there's so many different kind of like psychological models of grief, and there's no kind of right or wrong one. They're all kind of right. But
Mhm.
I think, like, it's a bit like when you're making a cake or something. I always say that recipes are guidelines. You know, you don't have to follow them right to the letter. You know, it's just kind of a guideline of what you should be putting in it, and then you can kind of tweak it here and there and throw in a few like little extra things, or take a few things out, and you're still gonna have a really tasty cake at the end. And it's a bit like that when you're grieving. Like, there's kind of the ones you were talking about was Kolber-Ross's 5 stages, and that's kind of anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and then kind of acceptance. And I think we all do certainly experience those emotions when we're going through grief, but they might not necessarily be in that order.
Right.
And we might get stuck in one for a little bit longer than another, and it might be years down the line that you feel the next one. So I think it's a good kind of like overview, but like with everything, we're human beings, we can't be put into boxes. You know,
Right.
we'd like to try and label things and, you know, organize things, but, you know, our souls just don't work like that. And there's so many variables in in humans and in our experiences that affect the way that we do grieve, that it's kind of really hard to kind of put yourself into a box like that. And I think it is helpful because it does give people kind of an idea of what they might be experiencing, but then also it can, in a sense, be unhelpful as well, because you're then feeling, when am I going to go to that next one? Or, oh no, I felt this stage before I felt that one. Does that mean I'm grieving wrong? You know, but the right way to grieve is your way to grieve, and we're all going to do that slightly differently.
Right. Yeah. Do you find in working with people that are grieving, or perhaps yourself if you're grieving, um, kind of that people might make very sudden changes during that, especially during the first few months or maybe the first year of grieving for a loved one that's gone, or it could be grieving anything. But if it creates a big life change, and then perhaps make it more difficult at times by making bigger life change, or have you found that reaction, you know, people within that?
Yeah, I think sometimes, yeah, because I think sometimes it does take a big life change for us to be able to make further life changes. Yeah, you know, I think sometimes we're kind of creatures of comfort, and we get stuck in these like comfortable little ruts and things. But change and we grow when we're outside of our comfort zone. And sometimes I think when you're thrown outside your comfort zone in a situation like that, it can then make you reevaluate other areas in your life and make other changes, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the worse. But if we don't give it a go, we're never going to know. So it's like,
Right.
what's the worst that could happen?
That's true. Very true. Very true. I had remembered it was just a small change on my part that I was remembering, but when my grandfather died, it was like I had really long hair, and it was like 2 weeks later, I went into the beautician and for just a haircut or trim, and I said, cut it all off. You know? And it was like, I don't know, I hadn't planned on it really. And it was a big change, but
I
it was
think
good. I didn't ever
yeah.
regret it. So.
Sometimes as well, I think it can be kind of an association thing in a way, because we've associated that look or that thing or that, the way our life was with that person. And sometimes that can just be too painful. So, we feel like we have to change it in a way to kind of ease the pain so we're not confronted with it every day.
Yeah, it stands for subliminal thought or whatever, perhaps. Yeah, interesting.
And
So,
I think the mind is such a fascinating thing, and the way the brain works, that we can kind of make lots of inferences loads of times over, but there'll always be one person that goes outside the box, or doesn't fit the rule.
yeah, very, very much so. The mind is a puzzle to me. I mean, I understand portions of it, right? But it's like, isn't it totally amazing how we're made? It's like, even if it feels like they're not always helpful, in forming the beliefs or stories or the old patterns that we end up trying to heal from. But it's like, it's amazing how we're made.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it every day, and I think it's just incredible how it works, and how just all these neurons firing, and how our kind of that nature versus nurture, and how all of these like little things that we've been through have turned us into the people that we are today. And I would think that some of the things I've been through, I would rather have not gone through them, but then I wouldn't be the person I am here sat talking to you today if I hadn't. So I think that has to be celebrated as well.
I think so too. And that thought pulls me through a lot, or has in the past, and in the grieving or regrets, especially, which I assume regrets might be a form of grieving. I don't know. That just thought came to me too. But in getting over the regrets or getting over the grief and realizing I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be me now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
If it
think
wasn't.
there's a lot of power to be found in that, I think, and a lot of kind of consoling as well, and like just showing you how kind of resilient and incredible that you can be, and that you've got through all of this. And I'm sure if I've been through all of this and managed to get to where I am today, then whatever you throw at me in the future, I'm going to be able to just climb over that mountain, no problem.
Yeah. So another thing I noticed on your website that I found really interesting was Indian massage.
Yeah, so I think there's the mind and the heart and the body are all just so interconnected, and I think you can't just work on one without working on the other. In the body, we hold so much tension and trauma in our bodies. It's like it remembers, and you can do the mindset work, you can do the heart work, but if your body and your muscles are still remembering that, they're still kind of holding on to that trauma. So I really kind of believe in combining that kind of mind, heart, and body approach to healing. So I do massage with all of my clients who are local to me, and help kind of move the energy and the tension through the body through massage as well.
Nice, yeah. So how does Indian massage differ from, like, say around here, a lot of the massage therapists do Swedish massage or something?
I think it's more just based on the technique, really. I think, and it's the Indian head massage comes from the ancient kind of Advuric healing, and it works on the meridian lines in the
Okay.
body. So it's also very tied into that kind of like the like our energy field as well. And by
Yeah. Yeah.
massaging these certain meridian lines around the body, you can kind of almost get the energy moving and flowing in the very similar way that you can do with Reiki as well. But it's much more of a kind of a physical response, and you've also it's just also soothing, and it helps you to relax. And I think then when you relax, you allow your brain to go that little bit further, and you'll kind of explore things a little bit more and slowly start to break down those walls, and then be able to open up a little bit more and kind of go to those painful places. Because in order to heal, we've got to accept whatever it was that hurt us in the first place, and our natural reaction is to just kind of shut that in a box and not
Hmm.
want to go near it.
Right.
But yeah, in order to get over it and get through it, we've got to kind of open that box up and explain it, ask the questions and work out why, why are we still holding on to that pain, or why is that been stored in my body? What are my shoulders and my muscles, trying to tell us? Because, there's so much tension stored in our neck and our shoulders and our back area as well.
Yes. Yeah, I've noticed a lot. I just take like two tennis balls sometimes and roll them down either side of my spine, starting at my C1 down to my tailbone or something. And it's amazing all the emotion that can release with that, and some deep clearing at point times when I needed it came from there. That deep sadness came out.
Yeah, and it's that kind of ties into that kind of that somatic release. It's that
Yes.
your body's got this tension, and it just needs to get it out. For me, it's I laugh a lot, so that's all. And yawning can be another one as well. That's another somatic
Hmm.
release. So any kind of like release like that, I have clients that will cry as well, and anything like that. It's just the body clearing that energy, but just in a physical way instead of a kind of a metaphysical way, or in a word way that we would with the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it's very helpful for sure. Um, Even I do that with chiropractic. I mean, it's another, the chiropractor doesn't see it as energy work. I don't think he
Yeah.
just looks at it as the body, but it's like I tell him almost all the time, you're doing energy work just like I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's the wonderful thing about kind of energy, is that everything is energy, and everything vibrates. We're all made up of atoms, and it's all vibrating at its own frequency, and it's just really kind of tapping into that frequency. And I think certain atoms and things, they can get like, it's almost like they get frozen in time, so they're just kind of holding on to that trauma, and we need to kind of work through them. And sometimes that works with the Reiki. Other times it works better with the massage, or sometimes it works better with the kind of the mindset coaching, or going through the heart. But the body always knows what it needs to do.
So it sounds like with your program, because I'm assuming, because you talked about how you do Reiki and how you do the massage as well as the guidance work, and probably hypnosis or something
Yeah.
as you're working through, and then um, so I lost my train of thought. It was so your program must be several weeks long then, in order to use all these different wonderful assets that can work together.
Yeah, normally it's I like to do a 13-week program, but then everybody's different. I will say it's 13 weeks, but if you need to take longer within the program, then I will give you that time, because healing can't be rushed, and it's sometimes people are much more open to going to those areas, and we're able to clear those things much quicker. Other times, it's just a little bit more gentle, and you just need to
Hmm.
take that little bit of time, or you might need a little bit more kind of integration time in between sessions as well, which I think is really, really important, to be able to kind of consolidate that one level of healing before then opening up the next one. Because if you're not kind of then settled back down again before we go even deeper, it's just going
Hmm.
to kind of turbulate more and more. So I think it's really, I'm really kind of to tell my clients that it will take as long as it needs to take, but on average that's kind of like a 13-week program. But if you need to take longer, we will take longer.
Hmm.
Because always about the transformation at the end that I provide, rather than being paid per the session, you know. So it just, you know,
Right.
it will take as long as it takes. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, very nice. So, you also mentioned a healing circle. So, do you then, is your heal method, then you'd work with people individually, but also as the group of who's going through it too?
Yeah, yeah. So I also do kind of group work as well, and I really feel that that's can be really important. You know, some people do find that they're able to open up much better when they're in a group, or just knowing that there's somebody else there who's been through something similar can kind of
Yeah.
give you that strength that you need to carry on, especially if you're feeling a little bit stuck in your healing process. You know, just having those shared kind of collective experiences can be really healing. And I found that has been
Mhm.
a massive part in my own healing journey, you know, because I think one of the biggest things is that we just don't want to feel alone.
Yeah.
And when we're in those really dark places that we don't like to visit, and then we don't tend to tell people about, nobody knows that we're there. So how can they tell us that they've been there if we are not opening up to them as well? But sometimes it kind of takes somebody else opening up to then be able to allow you to open up as well.
Right. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. We're complicated people.
Yeah.
Um, so, and so then how does your spiritual work go in, as part of it, of course, right? You do your Reiki and the massage and the hypnosis, and then do you have separate sessions for the spiritual part of it, or that's just all part of the basis of the guidance going through?
It's all kind of part of the kind of part of the progress. Some people are more spiritual than others, and some people are open to a little bit more work than others. So I'm kind of guided by the client as well, and as their own personal preferences as well. But I am kind of guided by God in everything that I do. So, you know,
Yes.
I rely heavily on my intuition when I'm working with clients, and that's never failed me yet. So I think, you know, there's so much kind of power in listening to those gut, you know, the gut nudges and things. And I think in modern life we're taught to ignore those and quieten them down. And I think the older we get, the less in tune we are with our intuition and our kind of spiritual side, and being kind of guided by something bigger than ourselves. And we're always doing things or got something on, and, you know, busy. And I think it's only in those kind of quiet moments of reflection that's when we really kind of can hear spirit and be guided by them. And we, you know, we have to allow ourselves to slow down and, you know, drop into those spaces to be able to have those hints. And sometimes they're pushing us in a direction that we might not want to go, but, or, you
Right.
know, we can't kind of see that. You're thinking, why are you taking me here? You know, but we've just got to trust them. And like, so kind of having that faith in my abilities, and faith in whatever, in the divine showing me whatever my client needs to go, that, you know, I'm seeing this now for a reason. So there has to be a reason behind it, and just kind of trusting that process is a big
Yes.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, good. Good deal. Would you want to tell us more about your books, that you've written or co-authored?
Yeah, so I've co-authored 5 books. 4 are out at the moment. So my first one was called She Defies. I think I've got copies of them here. They're all available on Amazon. That's this one here. This one is kind of like a little background into my healing journey and how I overcome bullying in school, and how that kind of, I defied the odds of, you know, of them, and just showed them that I wasn't, you know, I wasn't going to be broken. And that kind of ties in very much to She Wins as well. Nice Girls Finish First, which is all about how you can, the strength in kindness, and that, you know, kindness conquers all, and that no matter what I've been shown in my life, I've just faced it with courage and kindness, and that's got me through in the end. The other one was called Her Path to Entrepreneurship, which is a little bit more businessy, which is just basically how my business Healing with Hannah came into life, and all of the kind of nudges by spirit that guided me to where I am today. Those were all international bestsellers. And this one, which is the most special one out of all, this one was quite close to my heart, is When Hearts Heal. And the forward in this one is written by Dr. Joe Vitale, which was
Yeah.
that was really really special, and that's co-authored by 18 of my other heart healing practitioners, and we all
Okay.
dive into how heart healing has helped us within our areas of expertise. So this kind of my chapter is all about the heart and grief. There's one about kind of the heart and ADHD, one about limitless possibilities, burnout. One of the other one wrote about kind of toxic masculinity. So it's really kind of a really interesting book, actually, and a really kind of powerful healing guide as its own, a tool for healing that you can read and do the work. And there's like little exercises from each of us that you can actually kind of put those practical tips into your life. And I actually received this in the post the other day from the lady who does it, and it says global best-selling author.
Oh,
So
nice.
really pleased about that. So that's going to go pride of place on my shelf.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Very cool. And I was wondering if you could, I can't read my word here, but I'm sorry. I did lose my train of thought. I'm sorry. It was part of my mind is just keeping going back on what you've said, and it just feels so nourishing and healing in listening to how you put things together and how you work. I can tell it's a good, very helpful program.
Thank
And
you.
oh, you're welcome. But um, so is there other trauma release you do beside the grieving? Like say sexual trauma? I meant grief would pertain to all the traumas, I'm sure, and what you lose in different ways going through the
Yeah,
trauma.
I mean, I'm a specialist trauma-informed practice, and obviously with my background in psychology as well, I think uh, trauma is different for everybody as well. So what is traumatic for one person might not necessarily be traumatic for another, and that kind of that level of like how traumatic it is and what stage in our life we experienced it can have a massive effect on our entire lives, and I think there's a lot of people carrying around weight of things that aren't necessarily theirs to carry, that they need to be released. So yeah, I deal with all sorts of different types of trauma, whether that be kind of relational trauma or spiritual trauma or kind of a physical trauma. And I think all trauma in a way kind of can lead us into grief, whether they're
Yes.
grieving for that situation or a part of ourselves that has been lost, or kind of grieving for our innocence.
Hmm.
um, I think these things are all really kind of intertwined in a way.
Yes. Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, it's just like body, mind, and spirit. You can't separate them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Well,
also, you never know what's going to come up sometimes as well, especially when you're working with past lives or ancestral work as well, because that trauma that we're carrying around might not have happened to us or been ours. We might not even have been aware of it. So, something can come up that, really kind of can shock you, and then you kind of got a soul remembering, but it's not happened to us in this lifetime. So sometimes I think it's just being prepared for anything. I think when you're working in this kind of work as well, and just knowing that the heart and spirit won't show us anything or take us to a place that we're not ready or strong enough in that moment in time to heal.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what makes the healing work and so interesting because you don't know, and because you go into each session, at least I hear that you're doing this and I do the same. It's like, okay, what wants to happen today, right? It's
Yeah.
like, where's spirit going to lead me? So it's not tapping into the mind of, okay, now I need to do this and this and this. It's okay, what's next? And and listening, what's next?
Yeah, and I think that's can be even more healing for us as well, because I think sometimes our mind gets so fixated on things and we think, oh, that situation must have caused this trauma, when actually if you kind of let go of the conscious level and let your subconscious take over, sometimes the whatever caused that trauma isn't necessarily what we think it's going to be. There's something kind of a deeper root seeded cause to it that we might not even be kind of consciously aware of.
Yes, yeah, and it can just, if we let it, it can, or don't intentionally go to something else. Let it come up what needs to clear.
Yeah, and I think that's what the beauty of heart healing, like working with the heart, is that we're not forced. I don't force my clients into that situation, or they're wherever they're divulging to me and wherever they're going is being completely guided by them. Not like some other kind of regression therapies, or that take you back to a specific place or a specific time. So they're kind of almost forcing you to be in that moment. Like the heart will just take you to where you need to be and not show you anything until you're ready to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't looked at it that way. Yeah, that's really nice. Huh. Because you think of even the different forms of hypnotherapy. I've done a number of hypnotherapy sessions and stuff, and I really love them. I really and have benefited from hypnotherapy. But again, so often, even if it's my own mind wanting to know, in this certain trauma of my life, what did it feel like? What did I experience there? Right? What was I feeling? So that it helped me um, know, like, what reactions I'm having now, or the different reactions in my life that were come from that, and how to heal. But but to go from the heart, can you do the hypnosis then from the heart perspective instead of from the mind? You're kind of saying that's how you do.
Yeah, so that is how I do it. It is a kind of a form of hypnotherapy, but instead of being based in the mind, it goes from the heart, and that being the portal to showing whatever it is that we're going to deal with. And by working mainly with kind of the relationship behind whatever it was, we're not going experiencing that traumatic event itself. It's kind of the relationship behind it.
Uh-huh.
And I think with just going through the heart, I just adds in that little bit of extra kind of spiritual protection,
Hmm.
um, to my clients, and that my clients aren't going to go anywhere that they're not ready to go in. Consciously they might not feel ready to go there, but their heart and their spirit and their subconscious is like, no, I'm ready to deal with this now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, very nice. Well, Hannah, is there something else that we haven't talked about or covered that you would like to leave with our audience, and a message or something else, part of your work or your life, that you'd want to share?
um wow. I suppose just that if you are going through any form of grief or trauma yourself, just give yourself time, yeah, and remind yourself that there is no timeline to it. Don't compare your journey to anybody else's. All of our healing journeys are deeply personal, but that doesn't mean that they have to be walked alone, and that you're never alone. There's always somebody out there who is experienced or will have experienced something similar, who is wanting to hold your hand. So just make sure you have those conversations, reach out to somebody. I think that's one of the most wonderful things to do with the internet nowadays, that there is this, we can build these communities and get in touch with people that we wouldn't necessarily have been able to meet with before. So I think, make the modern world work for you in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful. Hannah, thank you so much for being with me today. I've really enjoyed visiting with you, and yeah, and again, the connection that what, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we couldn't have
Yeah,
connected like this. So it's wonderful to do so, to meet like-minded people. And
definitely.
so
Thank,
thank you so much. I
thank
appreciate it.
you. I've had an absolutely wonderful, wonderful hour. It's been really lovely. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you all so much for joining us and listening. And if you're going through grief and you're ready for some help, you might check out Hannah and all that she's able to do here, and something that could really be a benefit in your healing journey. So thank you all, and thank you again, Hannah.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.